First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Welcome to WUFT News First at 5. I'm Ophelie Jacobson.
And I'm Kendall Brandt. Thanks for joining us. A Gainesville man is facing charges after making threats to city officials.
That's right. WUFT's Alexa Herrera tells us what he said and what he's charged with. Alexa?
Alachua County Sheriff's deputies arrested 68-year-old Terry Martinbach at his home on Monday. On Friday, he made threats on social media and sent threatening emails to city commissioners. This was brought on by a recent vote in favor of inclusionary zoning. In a Facebook post, he said the commissioners triggered his PTSD and he wouldn't be able to control himself around them. In an email to the commission, Martinbach wished physical harm on the city leaders. He added that he hopes he could be the one to hurt them. I spoke with Martinbach yesterday. He told me he meant what he said, but that his words were not a threat, just a warning.
Thanks, Alexa. The Alachua County Sheriff's Office faces staffing issues, like many law enforcement agencies around the nation. As WUFT's Jake Reyes shares with us, finding those critical positions has been difficult, even after the passing of legislation designed to ease the headache.
Sirens are silent throughout the county, even with incentives to join. The Alachua County Sheriff's Office is experiencing shortages, a lack of deputies, crossing guards, and correctional officers answering the call.
Oh, how cute. When did you get that?
Helen Hester answered the call to be a crossing guard 9 years ago.
I love it because of the children that I deal with. The adults, they understand me. And they don't give me a hard time. Do I? Do I give you a hard time?
No. You're here to keep us safe.
Yes. Hold on. Back here. Come on. See?
Yep.
You can stand right here. Come on. You're not going to hurt nobody.
But not everyone is flocking to the force like Helen. In April, Governor Ron DeSantis signed House Bill 3, a law that gives bonuses, scholarships, and incentives to those who pursue a career in law enforcement.
Because of that, sometimes some of the areas that supplement law enforcement, the programs have been put on hold, or maybe it takes a little longer to fill certain things.
ACSO spokesperson Kaylee Bell says the legislation has not made it easier to find recruits.
Funding is so critically important for first responders. They are what keeps our community safe.
Since February, there have been around 117 open positions. Bell says the sheriff's office is competitive with salaries, but filling positions is still a challenge. She believes people prefer rural areas because it generally comes with less work.
If they're paying the same amount of money that we are, we may see some of our current employees deciding to transfer to those areas that have less stress.
A lack of law enforcement and crossing guards. This may make it more difficult for students to get from point A to point B at schools like this one.
To some people that aren't working, to tell them to go ahead and try to apply. You know, you're not working all day long. You can do what you got to do in between time and decide what you want to do.
And what ACSO wants to do? Fill those spots. Jake Reyes, WUFT News.
ACSO reports it's trying to raise deputy salaries to $50,000 a year to attract and keep employees. Well, it's looking cloudy outside, and I'm wondering if the weather is going to stay like this all night.
Well, I sure do not have the answers, but that's why we have WUFT's Jeff George, and he joins us right now in the weather studio.
And the Florida rainy season will continue for the next several weeks, but expect rounds of showers and thunderstorms up until then. But right now, as we look across campus, these are fair weather clouds, not rain clouds. Not feeling too great. Temperatures are in the 80s. It feels like the 90s. We also have a cold front slapped right in between Gainesville and Ocala, but the only place we have stormy weather is southeast Marion County heading towards Flagler and Daytona beaches. So most of the showers and thunderstorms will stay south of Gainesville throughout the evening, but a few could creep up our way. Possibilities of that are only like 20-30%. Temperatures fall into the 70s tonight, and that's how we wake up tomorrow morning. Maybe even some pleasant 60s for you folks up north. That'd be great. Weather headlines: more rounds of rain this week, hotter, less wet this weekend, and another tropical storm is possible soon just south of Florida. We'll talk about the track and impacts in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Jeff. The owner of a successful blimp company pleads guilty to stealing millions of dollars from COVID relief funds. WUFT's Silas Morgan spoke to him about his crimes. Silas?
The owner of the nation's largest blimp company is charged with wire fraud and money laundering in federal court. 41-year-old Patrick Walsh pleaded guilty as part of a plea deal at the federal courthouse in Gainesville on August 30th. He falsified data for 20 of his companies when applying for COVID-19 relief loans in the height of the pandemic. As a result, the government granted him $7.8 million. Walsh used the money to purchase an island in the Gulf of Mexico and paid off a ski resort in Wyoming and the farm he calls home in Williston, Florida. I spoke to Walsh last night. He stated that he didn't believe he was doing anything criminal at the time. He said that he made aggressive and risky business decisions without proper financial advisement. Walsh was released on bond until his sentencing in January. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Silas. Well, in the Nicholas Cruz trial, the defense abruptly rested today after only calling a fraction of the expected witnesses. The judge called the surprise move unprofessional. Since prosecutors were caught off guard, the judge will give them until September 27th to start their rebuttal. Cruz pled guilty to the Parkland massacre, but the penalty phase of a trial is needed to see if a jury wants to recommend the death penalty.
A 23-year-old motorcyclist is dead after a crash in Gainesville. The accident happened yesterday morning at the intersection of Archer Road and Clark Butler Boulevard. The crash involved an SUV and the motorcycle. The motorcyclist was pronounced dead on the scene. His name has not yet been released. However, GPD is conducting a traffic homicide investigation. A UF student was pulled over on I-75 during the first day of classes, and he told the trooper that he was speeding so he wouldn't miss class. WUFT News actually obtained the dash cam footage, and here's a part of their interaction.
I was going 116?
Yeah.
So sorry.
Back there coming down that hill, and then you used all 3 lanes to cut off several cars. You're reckless, man. You're going to get somebody killed. I'm debating to take you to jail for reckless driving. Why are you doing that?
I'm so sorry,
so
sir.
Stupid?
I was honestly just trying to make it to class.
The student Joseph DeAndre Mulatto was ticketed for speeding and charged with misdemeanor reckless driving. Joseph told a reporter on our digital team that the class actually ended up being canceled. You can read the full account of the unusual case at WUFT.org.
Amtrak cancels all long-distance trains in light of a railroad transportation crisis. We'll tell you more about the conflicts between workers and management next.
And the Queen is actually back in Westminster Abbey today. Find out the details about the procession and her upcoming viewing next on First at 5.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. In national news, a freight railroad strike could begin on Friday. Union workers and railroad management have been butting heads over new restrictions. Economic experts worry that a strike could worsen supply chain issues and drive up gas prices. The heads of the union and railroad companies met with Labor Secretary Martin Walsh today to try and talk over the issue. Amtrak, which uses a lot of freight railroad tracks, has already suspended several routes, including New York to Miami.
NASA sets a new date to attempt the Artemis 1 moon launch. NASA hopes all systems will be go on Monday, September 27th. A key test will take place the week before to make sure hydrogen fuel leaks have been repaired. This first Artemis mission is an unmanned trip to orbit the moon. Future trips will have astronauts on board. The second mission just to safely orbit again, and the third mission adds a moon landing.
Queen Elizabeth is back in Westminster Abbey after leaving Buckingham Palace for the very last time. NBC's Bree Jackson is in London.
A somber and historic day. Queen Elizabeth II departed Buckingham Palace for the last time. Her coffin accompanied by royal family members including King Charles, Princes William and Harry.
I just wanted to come and see the procession and see the King's artillery pull in the coffin.
Along the journey to Westminster, a horse-drawn carriage and grenadier guards ushered the coffin. A gun salute. Bells tolled, tributes fit only for a queen.
She was one of the most ionic persons.
She'll lie in state in Westminster Hall until Monday. Members of the public, some who lined up for days, paying their respects. Mourners brought to tears, others bowing and praying. All in honor of Her Majesty, who sat on the throne for 70 years.
Admirable, really, to a whole generation of women, strong, incredible women who work hard, who contribute to our society.
And touched hearts, young and old. Why did you want to come out and see the Queen?
Because I love her.
Officials predict up to 400,000 people will file past, paying tribute.
Just thank you. Thank you, Mum, for everything.
Gratitude for a life of noble service and a final farewell to the Queen.
President Joe Biden announces the approval of millions of dollars in funding for electric vehicle chargers across the country. The $900 million initiative will help build 500,000 chargers across 35 states. A priority is to place them near interstate highways. The money is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. The president also toured the Detroit Auto Show, where he got behind the wheel of a new electric Cadillac and took it for a short spin.
Thankfully, the weather hasn't been too crazy outside, but we're in Florida, so it can always change in a second.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's check in with Jeff to see what we can expect for the rest of the week.
In your UF weather forecast coming up next, we'll talk more about how a cold front and a tropical system to our south will impact weather heading into the weekend. Your 6-day forecast is next.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
And the skies across north central Florida are mostly dry late this afternoon, and that's just fine. Really don't need any rain anytime soon, but we are getting some down here in southeast Marion County, just south of Ocala. It's a broken line of storms that stretches all the way to the coast. Now this front will be bebopping around north and central Florida all week, and that'll keep the rain chances moderate to high. So as we go into the evening, Gainesville heading north, the chance of thunderstorms is pretty low. Pretty small, about 20-30%, but Ocala heading south. That's where stormy weather is most likely between now and midnight, and then things pretty much disappear and quiet down a little bit later on tonight. And man, is it sticky outside. Temperatures are in the 80s, no big surprise, but it does feel like the 90s. We fall into the 70s a little bit later on tonight. That's how we start off your Thursday, straight up stuffy. Then we'll hit the 80s at noon. Thunderstorm chances will increase to about 40 to 60% tomorrow. And here's that front again, just lollygagging somewhere between Gainesville and Ocala. That's where showers and thunderstorms are most likely tomorrow, kind of like today. Now the shower and thunderstorm possibilities as we get closer to sunset will decrease. They'll thin out, so spotty showers are possible until, let's say, maybe 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow evening, but this front sticks around into the beginning of the weekend, so will the chance for showers and thunderstorms. They'll be sticking around too. Now we have Tropical Depression 7. This was designated a depression a little bit earlier today. So there's a good chance, the way it's looking right now, this could turn into a tropical storm sometime this evening or later on tonight. But when it does, as it approaches the Leeward Islands, it will likely decrease in intensity, but it will stay a tropical storm as it passes through the islands this weekend. Then models diverge after that. We got to pay real close attention to that system. As of right now, as you can see, very low or little impacts for Florida, but that front, as it hangs around, will cause that moderate to high chance for showers and thunderstorms as we go into the weekend. The highest possibility, the way it stands now, is on Friday. That's when the front lifts to the north. As we start the weekend, you got to factor in some wet weather. Showers and thunderstorms are likely on Saturday. Your best outdoor day this weekend will be on Sunday. Only a 40% chance for thunderstorms, but when rain chances decrease, temperatures increase to around 90, and it stays that way early next week too.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, the Florida Gators volleyball team is on a hot streak.
They've won 4 straight matches at a pivotal point in the season, and we'll tell you what's next for them after a big win over a rival after the break.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Cristina Santiago. The Florida Gators volleyball team is on fire. The Gators have now won 4 straight matches after sweeping the FSU Seminoles at last night's home game. Middle blocker Gabrielle Esses accounted for 5 of the Gators' 19 blocks. Sophomore Merritt Beason dazzled in her return from an injury, leading the team with 13 kills. After being sidelined for a week, Beason says that this is one of the most fun team wins of the season.
Being down both the last 2 sets and rallying back together and never giving up. After every single game, we're learning something new about each other. And so tonight we learned we could fight no matter how far we were down. And so I think that's really special.
The Gators will look to win their 5th straight as they take on Wisconsin on the road this Friday. On the gridiron, the Florida Gators running game has certainly been a bright spot this season. Florida's 3-headed monster in the backfield is averaging over 209 yards on the ground through 2 games this season. Head coach Billy Napier said the running back is by committee approach to expected to execute this.
We're very much a running back by committee. You know, it's been our philosophy for a long time. Montrell, Trevor, and Naquan, those guys are next up. Those guys are selfless. They've got a great attitude. Each one of those guys, they contribute to our team in a great way. We'll continue to roll those guys through.
Florida will look to keep their stellar rushing attack rolling this Saturday when they take on USF. The Extreme Football League has now taken another step towards return to action. All 8 XFL teams have finalized their coaching staff for the league's 3rd reboot. Former Gators quarterback Shane Matthews was hired as the quarterback coach for Orlando's AXL team. Former Gator defensive coordinator Bob Stoops is the head coach for XFL's Arlington. Scott Spurrier, the son of legendary Gators coach Steve Spurrier, is on the staff as the tight ends coach. Former Gator coach Ron Zook is the defensive coordinator in Seattle. The league is set to relaunch in February of next year.
The University of Florida staff members are giving the bats on campus a new home. After 31 years, the UF bat houses are actually getting an upgrade. The university environmental health and safety workers have teamed up with a nonprofit called Fly By Night Incorporated. A new house opened in 2017, but researchers say the bats haven't made the switch because temperatures are too chilly inside. Fly By Night specialist Laura Finn suggests changes to make the homes more homey for the bats. They could darken the paint to make it warmer inside and add material to soften landings. An estimated 500,000 bats call the University of Florida home.
And before we go, one last check on the weather.
Not much to worry about this evening. Most of us will stay rain-free. We have a cold front that will be scooting around north and central Florida for the rest of the week and as we head into the beginning of the weekend. So with the front moving around, that keeps the rain chances moderate to high, with the highest possibilities coming up on Friday. Make sure you factor that into your plans, and that'll also keep temperatures near or below the average. Best outdoor day coming up on Sunday.
Thanks, Jeff. BBC World News is next, and the PBS News Hour is coming up at 7.
But you know, you can always find your Florida local news at WUFT.org. Have a good night.